This episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast is brought to you by Stealth Rod Holders. Stealth Rod Holders incorporate a unique, quick-release design, allowing you to set the hook at the twitch of a rod tip, while keeping your rod secure as you fish. There are several different mounting applications available for various boat styles. The universal rail mount system for pontoons is definitely worth checking out for you pontoon anglers. A favorite among kayak anglers, and what I'm most excited about this year are the new drop-ins for center console fishing boats such as my Key West 230 Bay Reef. No need to drill any holes, just simply drop the mount into the pre-existing drop-ins and voila! Two sizes are available to accommodate smaller or larger rods, so whether you crappie fish or troll for giant stripers, they've got you covered. Go to stealthrodholders.com today. All orders over $75 get free shipping.
Everything's flat. There's water rushing over rocks. I didn't even see rocks I didn't even know those were there because they were covered by grasses and shrubs. And I looked back and I said, you know what? We're in trouble. I don't know what's happening. I'm like, there was flood warning out 2 days prior. There was. But there was no more warnings. So, and we're not by a dam, so I didn't think I didn't think anything of it. Plus, there was a whole section we had to stop at that was completely dry. Well, it came over that, okay?
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your fearless host, Angie Scott.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. I'm Angie Scott, and I'm here with an amazing female bass angler, Jennifer Muse. I may have said that wrong, but she will correct me.
Now you got it. That sounded pretty good. I'm not even sure if I say it right.
Well, Jennifer, I got to meet you for the first time here down in Florida. It's been a lot of fun. We got to have a really fun dinner the other night.
We did.
And it's just really been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit this week. And I just wanted to have you on the show because you're inspirational. You fish for bass from a kayak, which is impressive. I'm not a big kayak angler, so to me, I don't feel like I have enough coordination to do it. So I'm always impressed by our kayak anglers.
It's come a long ways. I'm in a bona fide, and it's an angler kayak, so we're talking we can stand up. I'm going to tell you something. If my husband has terrible balance, Angie, terrible. If my husband can stand on this kayak without a problem, you're game for a bona fide. Because this guy, he's the guy that when you went out and jet skied, we'd end up leaving him in the middle of the lake because I couldn't get back on. I'm like, get on. He just has really, for as athletic and agile as he is, the guy he has no balance. But on a bona fide, I watch my husband stand. That's a good thing about a bona fide. You're not sitting 24/7. After a while, sitting gets tiring. So we have bona fides. So maybe we'll talk you into getting you into a bona fide.
I probably need to give it a try.
Right.
My second kayak fishing experience in my life was just this week, and we just rented some cheap, sit on top kayaks. They're not made for fishing. Super
those
tippy.
Are kind of tippy.
Yeah. And
I'm not even sure I ride those. We started from the bottom. I'm telling you, we started from the old Sun Dolphin. There's a story behind this, and it's funny, but it makes me kind of sound like a selfish punk. But I end up it was around Father's Day. I end up talking to my brother, and I'm like, man, Father's Day's coming up. I don't know what to get Dustin. He's like, get him a kayak. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. My sister lived a couple hours away, and they had a new sporting goods store out there. The sporting goods store was called Dunham Sports, I believe, and it had just opened, so they had this great deal, like buy one, get one half off. And I'm like, I know it's not Father's Day for me. I had a gold. We did not have our things together at this point yet. We had a gold Impala, and I literally had driven 2 hours to go pick up this kayak from my sister's hometown, or my sister's where she was living. I get there, we end up taking, I got it was like a red hot deal, so I got Dustin a kayak, but I was like, I'm getting me one, he can't fish by himself. So we drove back, and we had to use Like we put them on the top of our car. We looked absolutely ghetto. I mean, we were on the interstate and people were like, what is that? But I tell you what, that was where it started. I mean, we go way back. We actually, as a family of 4, I've been taking my kids fishing since they were born, literally taking them out on the water to the pool. Drake was as soon as his belly button, he was a July baby. So as soon as I've always been around the water. As soon as his belly button fell off, I took Drake to the pool. I mean, we went to the pool, to the lake. My family had a cabin out at the lake my whole life, so I was born around my aunt and uncle. And pretty much I spent all my younger years out. First, it started off in tents, and then we kind of graduated, and then finally had a cabin at the lake. And my family were out there having a good time. Us kids take off. We fished. Nobody even watched us. I'm not even sure how we made it, but we made it. We were just outside. Yes. I mean, they were out there having a good time, and we were only there to go back, get something to eat, and go back out and play. We stayed out late at night. But yeah, we actually I saved all my money, and I thought it was, once we had kids, we had no money, but I saved my money, and we bought a paddle boat. And we started. We did fine in that. I actually my kids were fishing I gave them doll flies at first. That was the first hooked thing I started giving them, but really little. Galen, my daughter was picking up fish by the time she was 2, hoisting them up. She loved to fish. The kids were never scared of it, but we started flinging. I mean, there's too much, and then we got too big, so we started sinking it. So now we're back at the Father's Day, and I was to the point where the kids started being naughty, and it was time to split us all up. So we started off with 2 kayaks. I brought them all the way home, and it just, as soon as we got in those kayaks, and as soon as I was by myself, there was something that changed. Something inside me was like, now it was. I'm not even sure what it is about kayaking, but it's something I'll probably do for the rest of my life. I'm sure you find it even on the water for yourself. I like to be outdoors. I like to fish. I like to be out there, and you could be quiet. We started really catching more fish because, oh my gosh, now we can get in these places where you're not busting the bank. You're not flopping around in a 5-seater, paddle boat. The kids aren't with us, and now we actually are, out on the water, and it's something changed. Something changed for me, and I think really. It wasn't very long after that we started to run into. There was a local guy, and there wasn't we started fishing kayaks. There was no kayaks anywhere, anywhere. We didn't ever see anybody. But I'm from Nebraska, so I mean it's kind of a quiet place.
Right.
We run into a guy, and he was a local. He owned maybe not a local of my town, but an hour away. He owned he was a fishing guide, and he also kayaked. And he was like, have you ever? You guys catch a lot of fish, like, have you ever thought about, tournament fishing or doing any of that stuff? And we're like, well, I didn't even have a smartphone at that time. I was one of those people who didn't get a smartphone until I was like 25. I'd had my kids. I was a stay-at-home mom, and our budget just didn't allow for that. But Dustin, once we started talking to him, he's like, no, there's a whole another world that exists out there. And he's probably, him and Dustin actually his name is Marty Hughes. He goes by Kayak Jack. He's actually pretty influential, and I would say Marty might have been the guy that kind of really got kayak tournament fishing really started, especially in the Midwest. Mm-hmm. Marty is also, he's a gem. He's an absolute gem, but he really did. He started talking us into maybe looking into some tournament fishing, and so I think it might have been Mother's Day or maybe my birthday. Dustin shows up with a smartphone, and I immediately start learning how to use it, and kind of looked at some of the places that Marty talked about getting into, and started following a few anglers, and I don't know. I've always been a go-getter. I decided that, I thought maybe, essentially I just started reaching out to people, how does this sponsorship thing work? How do you get into this stuff? Eventually, you do enough research and you start to find out that there's these tournaments that exist. There's a lot of, there's anglers out there that are competing for like real dollar bills. And I'm like, well, I love to fish. How do we get in that? And so we started to kind of figure out that there were some tournaments that were happening. And so Marty actually was a tournament director, and he ran Kayakapalooza. And Kayakapalooza was initially a multi-species tournament, which is really kind of how we got really good with fishing, because it forced us not to just focus on one species. And we were bass fishermen, but Dustin and I have been fishing since high school. We used to take Wendy's French fries on our lunch hour and go down to the local park and catch like 20-pound, 10-pound, 15-pound carp and strip out reels. And I mean, we have fished together. He was more of a, he was a farm kid. And he fished more like the creeks and stuff, so he was more of a cat fisherman. But my uncle was an avid bass fisherman and white bass fisherman, so we get together and we're like, okay, you fish, I fish. I think we've probably been fishing. We will celebrate our 20th wedding anniversary this year, and I'm pretty sure I was 14 or 15 when I met Dustin, and we instantly, we fished together. I think we've been fishing together ever since. But back to this tournament thing, we get into the tournaments and we start fishing Marty's tournament. It's a multi-species tournament. So if he forces you to fish, it forces you to fish for different species, right? So we had to get your best 3 of crappie, bluegill, walleye. If walleye, you could have bonus species. He kind of altered it, but one year, a guy had caught a bunch of minnows, but they were all different species, and he smoked us all. But it was a different species, you know? And he'd gotten so many bonus points, so Marty stopped doing it that way. But it just opened up the door. I started to grow my social media first on Twitter. I'd heard that's where you were supposed to go. I still have an amazing following on Twitter, but Twitter's hard to, it's a little different now. I feel like Twitter's a little bit harder to do. But
So that's a really cool story about how you got into kayak fishing and into tournament fishing, and you've been doing this a while now. So now, we were just talking earlier, you were recently at the Bassmaster Classic.
I was.
And there was a tournament there that you took part in, and you had kind of a crazy situation happen.
We did. Dustin and I had qualified for the Bass. We tried to qualify in Nebraska, and we really just did a terrible job. I felt like that we thought that we'd done some really good pre-fishing, but didn't account for the drawdown of the lake. So it wasn't close to us, and once we had pre-fished using maps and kind of looking at all the other things. And once we got there, all the water was well below, summer pool.
And what body of water was this?
This is in Nebraska. I think we fished over by Elwood, but it was the Bassmaster event that they had hosted here in Nebraska, and we didn't qualify for it. There wasn't a lot of fish caught in that event, and it was just tough fishing conditions. But we had heard that Colorado, and I live pretty close to Colorado, was going to put on another Bassmaster event, and it just so happens to have been at my home lake. Other than hadn't fished where I'd grown up, we hadn't fished there for years. But it just so happens Dustin and I end up qualifying for the event. We get tickets to go down. We fished our butts off, but we get tickets we qualify for the Bassmaster. We make history. The first ever Bassmaster kayak series, and it was held down at Possum Kingdom in Texas. Okay. We get down there. And we pre-fished the area pretty good, but once there's been some floodwaters, some flooding had come in. And once that, I don't know if you're familiar with Possum Kingdom or anywhere in Texas, but that is this red mud. I'm talking, it looked like the thickest chocolatey milk ever. And I'll tell you, that stuff's hard to fish. Oh, yeah. For me. That's not something I'm used to. It's not something I fish. I'm thinking I'm going to have to present something loud, something. Anyway, fast forward, we end up, we find a place. And for Dustin and I, we have come to the conclusion that if we stick with something in pre-fishing that looks familiar to what we have at home, we do well. So it just so happens we get out under, they have some rules, we get out under an underpass, and kind of launch in this. It's supposed to be an area. Bassmaster has rules. It had to be a public area. So we launch out of this this little off the path creek area, and we had just gotten a torpedo, which changed it tremendously. We were
explain to listeners what that is if they don't know.
That torpedo is a motor. And it is pretty much a trolling motor. It gets about 5 miles an hour. But now that we started to compete, I was telling you guys about Marty's tournaments. Well, we start winning Marty's tournaments. That's how we end up getting, paddles. That's how we got life vests. That's how my kids got, all kinds of. We have a slew of paddles for Marty's tournaments, and that's how we afforded our gear. That stuff is expensive, and it wasn't just Dustin and I. I'd get later on go and get my kids Drake and Dalen fishing. So we had 4 kayaks. We needed 4 paddles, but we going back to Bassmaster. We're in this creek. We tried the Torpedo out because we had just gotten it. We actually didn't get the parts until just before, but we knew. We had pre-fished an area. We had looked at the maps, and some of our areas that we wanted to go, the only way you could get there was with a Torpedo. You wouldn't be able to. So our game plan had to include the Torpedo. We had to try it out. We didn't get the parts until we were just there. And suddenly, anyway, we go up and...
From billion-dollar ad budgets and arena naming rights to tens of thousands of retail locations, big wireless providers spend big to appear like they're your only option. How do they afford it all? That big bill you get at the end of every month. Mint Mobile had a different idea. Instead of brick and mortar overhead, Mint Mobile is online only. What does that mean for you? A whole lot of savings, because wireless plans from Mint Mobile start at just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. You'll save enough that you can get a brand new rod and reel for the upcoming season. For anyone who just hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan, and you can even keep your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. By going online only and eliminating traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes significant savings on to you. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That's mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
There is a little rock quarry. It's beautiful up there. It's great. We power fish it, okay? And we find fish, and we're like, this is the spot. Nobody could find fish earlier than that. So we're like, this is it. This is where we're going to eat. The water's still semi-clear. It's not completely blown out because it hasn't backed up into this. Because Bassmaster has rules, and you can't get out of your kayak, okay? I have this, I'm not sure what my problem is, but I can't, I keep going and going. I have to see what's around the corner, around the next bend. And we had actually tethered together, and Dustin hauled me all around. And it started to get shallow, so we unhooked with each other, and I see this little, I like to say it's like a rock quarry. I actually had to scrape my kayak on the bottom and shimmy myself to get up there, and I told Dustin, I don't know if you can make it, but this up here, it looks awesome. It was clear water, and I was like, I knew if I could find clear water, I knew, and there was grass, and there was structure in there, and I was like, okay, maybe we can, if you won this Bassmaster tournament, you were taking home $10,000. I was hoping, that was us. I wanted that to be us.
For sure.
So we get up in there, and I start hearing this loud sound. I wasn't really sure what the sound was. Plus, we're by an air base. So, and you get a little disoriented. I have electronics now on my boat. I've worked really hard to put as much as I can with the budget that we have on these kayaks to try to compete with these anglers, because they have really good gear. We kind of started a little late on this. Some of these people have $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 worth of gear, kayaks and gear. We're just getting there. So, we fish the area. We go up that little rock quarry. It's beautiful. I hear that noise. I keep asking. He's like, I don't know what that is. I'm like, does that sound like is that a plane? And what is that? What is that noise? Looking back, if I had paid more attention, I would have noticed there was bubbles on top of the water, and that should have been my first indication. But it just never occurred to me. It's so beautiful. I was almost awestruck, right? Yeah. There was birds, and it was beautiful. I'm like, no, this looks like home. we can fish here. Maybe we can pull this. And we had done good in pre-fishing, so I was like, this is what we're not going to fish anymore. We're just leave them alone because the next day is a tournament, right? I start coming around the bend of this. I go a little bit farther out there, and I take some pictures of Dustin, and I kind of noticed there's a rock, a large boulder off. And when we had gone up there, I had noticed it was such a. I'm like, wow, how did these rocks get in here? I kind of made a mental note. When I came around the corner of that rock now, what was completely exposed is only showing about the top third of the rock. And I don't think you notice, we're in kayaks, we're floating. Right. The place, what's happening and what I don't know is the place is slowly filling up, okay? I don't know what's going on, but I start seeing garbage, like dirty stuff coming down, almost like a wall of foamy stuff. And I'm like, what is that? Well, I knew we were going to leave. We decided to go back around the corner, and I don't know where that water's going. I thought it was going down maybe at just another little narrow creek. I don't know. I wasn't really familiar with the area, and it wasn't. It was literally just filling up, and suddenly, I told Dustin, I'm like, you know what? I think we're in trouble. We come around the corner, and we crossed through, like, brush. I mean, I barely got through. Barely. There was a narrow opening so small, I wasn't sure Dustin could get there. All of a sudden, I look down, and what was 2 to 4 inches of water, straight bottom, is now 5.5 foot, and now it's like a class 5 rapid. Okay, I'm talking like it didn't even. I had to double check my electronics because it did not look like the same area. Everything's flat. There's water rushing over rocks. I didn't even see rocks I didn't even know those were there because they were covered by grasses and shrubs. And I looked back and I said, you know what? We're in trouble. I don't know what's happening. I'm like, there was flood warning now. 2 days prior, there was. But there was no more warnings. So, and we're not by a dam, so I didn't think I didn't think anything of it. Plus, there was a whole section we had to stop at that was completely dry. Well, it came over that, okay? I told Dustin, I'm like, I'm sorry, honey. I'm like, but there's only one way out. You got to go down. And I'm like, you need to paddle into it. I paddled hard. I paddled hard right in. You had seconds. Now the water is going so fast you can't turn around. You can't get off on the side because how much is coming in here? Mm-hmm. Where you get off on the side, are you going to drown in here? I told Dustin, I'm like, we got to go. We got to go now. I paddled 2, 3, 4, 5 strokes. I went down. I barely made it. I lost some of my gear off the back of my kayak. I barely make it, and I know. I immediately see a little tiny square of slack water to my left. I immediately put my paddle down, try to grab the ground, swing me around because I know Dustin's right behind me. Okay. Dustin, my husband, he's 6'1". He's a big guy. He's got a lot of gear. He takes everything but the kitchen sink. I knew. And I told you that balance story for a reason. This guy, he doesn't have great balance. He's agile, but I knew that guy wasn't going to. I knew he wasn't going to make it. I knew he wasn't going to make it. He went down. I saw him flip. It flipped him. That boat dove over the top. It flipped him all the way over. All his stuff. He gets disoriented. He's not really. It seems like it was for me. It seemed like a long time. Yeah. I'm sure it was seconds. I'm sure it was. I can't see him. I'm hollering for him. I can't. He's really. He finally stands up and he's telling me, he's like, I think my leg's broke. I think he's got a lot of stuff going on. He's like, my stuff. I'm like, don't worry about it. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, we have children. I'm like, you will get on this boat. We're going home to our kids. I'm like, you get up there. It took him. The only thing that had kept that kayak there is we use a catchboard to measure our fish, and he has tethered it to his boat. That catchboard is so strong. We all used to complain about how heavy it is, and oh my gosh, that catchboard held on to his kayak, to all of his gear. Most of I'd seen all of his stuff float off, like his shoes. I seen his paddle float off. I'm not sure. I could tell he was panicking, and I actually end up counting like you would to a kid because he was almost hysterical. He was disoriented. He almost seemed like he blacked out, like it was a shock type of a deal. Mm-hmm. He stands up. He starts grabbing his gear. His Garmin is half on, half off. His Torpedo, the new Torpedo, the parts are all stripped out. They're falling. His rods are broken, but they're there. His rods are broken, but they're there. we finally, and it's filling up faster and faster, and I'm like, we got to get you on your boat. We finally get the boat upright, get what we salvage, what we can. He puts half his gear on the bow of my boat, but how am I going to get him now? I can't jump in to get him. I mean, how am I going to get him from there? He's no paddle. His paddle's gone. Right. I'm thinking, how are we going to get down? You're going to use your hands? Maybe he has no shoes. There's nothing to really paddle with. The water kind of takes us. I'm like, I'll hang on to the side. I'm grabbing trees by this. I have a paddle, but he's got to hang on to me because he doesn't have a paddle. Right. We start going down the edge. I'm telling you, that might have been, if we hadn't have gotten out of there, it could have ended so much worse than it did. I think we were super emotional about it. We decided, we thought, we don't really know when they do say something about flash flood warnings. It would later on, I had told the story enough that later on I would find out that there actually had been a storm about 50 miles from there. And it actually drains into the place that we were fishing. It was just a timing issue. We were just in the wrong place. We really were. And it just happened to catch us. We have no experience in whitewater rafting or any of the sort. And we're fortunate that, his life vest did not deploy. And I did not know, I was telling you earlier that I was kind of a spoiled individual because my husband's gotten some of my things ready for me. I did not realize that my cartridge wasn't in my brand new vest that I had bought. So I'm glad that I didn't jump off and try to get him, or it could have been a different story. I've got 2 kids at home, so I would say if there's even if they say that there's been some flooding, even if it's 2 days prior to that, if you're going to fish those back areas like we tend to fish, you're going to have to realize that water's got to come down somehow, and even if you're not by the dam, that doesn't mean anything, We're fortunate that we did lose. We didn't get to pre-fish a lot because we had to replace a lot of things, but it could have been a different story. One of the guys was there, and he's like, Dustin, this could have been a memorial tournament, so we're glad that you're here. But we would go on. The craziest thing is we would go on to have a good time afterwards. We went to the Classic afterwards. We got to walk across the Bassmaster stage, be down there with all the individuals. Eventually it turned out right, but my goodness, for my first Bassmaster event, it was pretty. We did place. We placed. I don't know. Dustin ended up getting like 80th place. Okay. We had to make a lot of changes. A lot of the areas we were gonna fish, we couldn't because our equipment was broken or down. But we ended up catching some fish, and I would say we started in some little tiny sun dolphins, and here we are, handful of years later, and we're not only fishing the Bassmaster events, but we're coming to ICAST and doing some marketing. I quit my regular job, and now I run a social media marketing, a podcast, and the sky's the limit. Yeah. This is kind of the industry. This is how I met you.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, that's quite the story, quite the experience. I'm not sure I would have been able to fish the tournament after all that.
You know what? It did kind of kill your mojo. It really did. I don't think we ever could focus after that. I think we had to go and replace his phone, and then we didn't really get a pre-fish, and the areas had to change up a little bit, but. You can't complain. We're alive. Nobody lost their life there. My kids' folks got to come home, and but the sky's the limit. Really, that was one bad thing in all these years that I've fished. But you also, that serves you a good lesson to make sure when it does flood. And I told you, Dustin's life vest didn't deploy. Maybe using an automatic life vest isn't the way to go for a kayak fisherman, especially in an event like that, where maybe he just sprung out of the water too fast and it really didn't get as wet as what he should have. I don't want to take that risk. I think I teased Dustin, and I'm like, this is a time when you need to get with a really good life vest sponsor, somebody to put you in some life vests that it's going to keep you safe, and if you do flip out of your kayak, you're going to float up and you're going to be okay. Because it could have been different. He could have hit his head. He could have floated down. And then I would have tried to jump off, and then I didn't realize I didn't have No,
Yeah.
I didn't have my cartridge in there. I mean, it could have been a lot different story. We just got fortunate. We were able to collect ourselves enough to go back out, get back on the horse, and fish the tournament anyway. I think we were mentally defeated, but it didn't help that it was like 104 while we were down there. But the experience was so amazing. I mean, you can start in a paddle boat like I did with my kids, and here we are, and we're sponsored anglers, and we get to meet all these people that. And we're at ICAST to see products and boats and people, and I'll tell you what, I wouldn't exchange this life for another. Just wouldn't.
Well, that's quite an inspirational story. I'm so glad to have met you, and thank you for taking some time out. I know you're working on getting out of here.
No, I'm glad you stayed for me. We've been chasing each other around for the next.
It's busy.
I not only do this, but I run a social media marketing company where you do logos. I mean, I do a ton of work. Logos. I run accounts, Facebooks. Then we do the podcast, the weekly podcast. So
it's a lot.
I know. You come down here, and you think it's all great, but there is a lot of work that goes into what you and I do, and the reward is sweet, but it's
work.
Definitely a lot of work.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, if I can do it, and especially where we're women, I mean, my daughter fishes. I would encourage. This is what makes me love you, because you don't realize there's as many women as they are until you start looking for them.
Right.
And suddenly there's a lot of women.
Yep.
And I think if people really knew how many women actually were out there doing this, it would encourage them to get out there and do this. I mean, literally. Everybody, COVID wasn't too bad for me because I'm an outdoor girl anyway.
Absolutely.
I really didn't think it was too bad because I was already outside. I thought, well, I'm not going to run into anybody with COVID out here. But it's definitely a place where women can shine and, try to put forth some effort into, competing. One day, I hope to goodness you see me up there holding a big fat check. I'll be like, yes, finally.
Absolutely.
But nonetheless, I mean, again, the sky's the limit. If you can get out there, and you get on pontoon. I see your stuff. I'm equally excited. You're like, I don't know about a kayak. I'm coming. We will eventually at some point. We'll come fish. I want to fish. I want to do the karaoke. That's what I want to do. I'm a karaoke fan, so I seen that. I'm like, that is right up my alley. We all do karaoke. So
yeah, it's fun.
Dustin's we used to joke around and do like an Aretha Franklin. I would pretend it was me, and he would be in his falsetto singing it. It was great.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So.
Awesome. Well, we'll do that. We'll make it happen. And that's what this show is all about, is just sharing these stories to inspire other women to get out there and get after it. So thank you so much for being on the show, and we will stay in touch. Where can people follow you online? You know what?
I am at Kayak for Life Jen Muse. I have TikTok. I have Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. If you DM me, I'm pretty sure if you fish, I'm going to follow you back. I mean, that's it. That's all the requirements are. I am pretty organic about it. I really like to meet people. I'm a people person, so I always feel like that people cross paths for a reason. So the fact that you and I are sitting here, for me, is this is a result of hard work. This is a result of fate, of just really putting like-minded people together. So. Where else can you come and everybody here loves every single thing that you do for the most part? Right. So absolutely. Heck yeah, I'm stoked. I'm grateful that you asked me to be on. I know I ran into you and I know I do some social media stuff and I share some of your things, and I thought, appreciate it. Yeah, I never would have in a million years be like, oh, I'm going to be on the Women Angler. I am today. Here you are. I am today. So no, I appreciate it. And you guys can follow me out there, and I'll follow you back, and you guys can check out the Bass Fishing Dads podcast. We try to do, sometimes you get a little behind, but we try to do 4 episodes a month, and we've done some pretty cool anglers. I mean, we've got to get you on there. We got to do some. Sure. We got to get you on there. But we've done Bill Dance. We've gotten some pretty cool pros. There's not just guys. Right. We actually had some. We had Christine Fisher on. Yep. I suppose if we can get you on there soon, we'll get you on there. Yeah. But my goodness, we've got I don't know. I do a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm here for the fishing. I really am. There's nothing more. The only reason I work is to afford stuff to fish. It gets so expensive. But I quit my regular job and I just went for it. Just jump in with both feet. I've never been happier. This is the lifestyle for us. So I take my kids. They're here with us now. They had a blast. In fact, they had so much fun that they both went back at 5:30 and didn't wake up until 12 at night. They were exhausted. I mean, it's a lot of work, a lot of walking. They didn't realize what it is. So, I'm pretty fortunate, and I'm grateful to be here and glad that I finally got to catch up with you. It's weird that we're together, and I'm like, oh. So I'm excited that we got to meet up here and do some iCast together. I mean, hopefully we can do it again or the next event. And I'm seriously going to get you. I mean, once you get in a kayak and you get in a good one, I know you're always going to be a pontoon girl. I know you will. And you're
well, I have a center console this year actually, so it's a little different. But I'll go check out those kayaks before I leave.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Bonafide just released a brand new pedal drive, and that's huge for our company. So we were strictly a paddle kayak. So.
I definitely need a pedal drive.
Yes, I mean that's definitely. I've gotten to where now I can do 10 miles easy.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt me anymore. Those kayaks that you rented, that hurt your back and your butt.
Butt hurts
so
bad.
It doesn't matter what kayak. Just remember to try it before you buy it, and maybe make sure at least your seat is good. And it's not super tippy. But the Bonafide kayaks have. Oh man, they're definitely we call it stupid stable. They're definitely the kind you can stand on. You can fish from. And again, we just added a torpedo charge, so that's a game changer for us.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
awesome. All right.
It's been a pleasure.
Well, we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much again, and I look forward to following your adventures online, and we'll stay in touch.
Fabulous. Good times.